I'm an archaeology professor, assistant professor at Purdue University, just down the road. We moved here from Southern California in 2007, so been here a few years, and we've owned this house for about 4 years now, and discovered for the price that it had a very expansive lawn, very large patch of grass with very little except a few blue spruces on it. And so we saw that as kind of an empty palette, and we saw ourselves spending a lot of time taking care of lawn, but we figured we'd rather have the land give something back to us as well for all the time and energy we put into it. And Lafayette's actually really a perfect place for that, because you're really on the seam of two different production systems. We're just right down the road. There's just the monoculture, industrial classical monoculture of corn and soybeans. But there's also, we are very happy to find a thriving organic farming community. And so here what we've decided to do is model our garden more on a very sort of polyculture scheme. The idea of mixing vegetables and flowers, we really try not to use chemicals at all.
Well, when you walk through this neighborhood with mostly lawns, some of them very lovely, and you come upon your food garden here, it looks like a new idea.
It's a traditional type of neighborhood in town in many ways, very conservative. The next door neighbor told me once how much the old owners of this house spent annually on their lawn, and it was several thousand. I don't remember the exact figure, somewhere between $5,000 and $7,000 a year just to maintain the lawn.
No.
And it was, I'm sure, immaculate. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
But that's, we
you decided not to follow that legacy.
Follow his footsteps, perhaps to her chagrin. But in any case, I think we want a yard that looks nice, and I think it's very possible to have a garden that's both beautiful and sustainable and productive as well, and delicious. So that's kind of a model that we've tried to follow. We try to attract, so we engage in a practice that's becoming more and more called edible landscaping. And so we try not to plant anything that, if we can't eat it, at least it'll be productive to the plants that we are eating.
Feed the bees or feed the soil. Or,
exactly. A vegetable garden in the front yard can be, because it's a centerpiece, you want it to look good, you can follow strict sort of formal principles of geometry like they do in the chateaus of France, or you can sort of have a more informal cottage style like in any garden, or a combination thereof. And so we have some basic geometric patterns that we've repeated with the raised beds, but you have vegetables and flowers sort of flowing out from there, sort of breaking up the hard lines of the geometry. The perennial borders, I went ahead and dug in a lot of compost and mushroom compost and peat moss, and amended it quite a bit. And so all of these are stationary soil, so to speak, well amended soil, and mulch it every year and build up more organic material, and it becomes very workable over time. And they're all sort of hooked up to a drip system as well. That's really sort of the people who in the suburban areas work full-time, have full-time jobs, and maybe feel they don't have time to garden. The hooking up a drip system is really a gift. It's really one of the best things you can do for your garden, because both the perennials borders are on one system, the raised beds are on another, because they have different soil properties. So this whole garden is basically hooked up on two water sources. And so if I go at it, my work sometimes takes me out of town for research, for conferences, I can just say, turn on this knob this many times a week, and then as it's done, everything's watered.
So how political is a statement, or whatever it is, a sign? It certainly says who you are.
Yeah.
Is it political? Is it just is it educational? Is it proselytizing? What are you doing here?
I try not to proselytize too much. I guess it's a statement in itself. But the way that food is produced now, I have strong political feelings about that, and we certainly. And this is something I want to get across to my kids and the next generation, is we have a choice in the way that we produce food. We have this sort of traditional industrial model of food production, monoculture, heavy use of chemicals and GM. Every time you make a purchase at the store, whether it be Whole Foods or the farmer's market or your regular supermarket, is you're voting with your pocketbook. You're supporting a type of food production system. In the sense that it's political, I guess this is sort of a statement in support of a way of producing food. And so, you know, there's certainly a place for the industrial model. There's probably a place for GM even, but the way that you know, and I'm not sort of orthodox in that way. I think there's a number of ways that we can.
Yeah, I think that anybody that is going to break. You got to be resilient. You got to realize that we have some very serious problems coming along the pike here in a couple of decades, and it's going to take bits and pieces of everything that works.
Yep, and those channels need to be open across the spectrum. And I think they're starting to open up a little bit. Where we are is sort of ground zero in many ways for GM research, for biotech, and so
here at Purdue.
Here at Purdue, and they've been, you know, from what I understand, fairly closed-door policy to other options. But from what I understand now, the last couple of years, they're opening up to talk to other sorts of ideas about how food can be grown and so forth. Because some of the biotech giants are. It's scary to have, and this is, I guess, where politics comes into it, have so much control over the seed supply, over the food supply, in the hands of 4 or 5 multinational corporations. To me, as just as a sort of a democratic, democratic process, the way food is produced that's a scary thing to me. Traditionally, of course, the vegetable garden is supposed to be soldierly rows of corn and carrots and cabbage, and without a lot of thought put into design. But if you have it in your front yard, you know, you've got to put a little more effort into aesthetics. But also, it's just more interesting. You're also tapping into history. I mean, this is a way that people used to grow their food, and you sort of feel a connection to the past when you grow it this way. As well as to, and as an archaeologist, that's something I'm very interested in, is how people produced their food thousands of years ago.
Ever been to Romania?
No.
They don't have lawns in Romania.
I can imagine.
They have front yard gardens, woodland gardens, and
people can't afford the pesticides and so forth to feed their land, fertilizers to feed their land.
They cut hay in graveyards and stack it up.
Yeah. I do my research in the Caucasus in Armenia.
Oh, do you?
Okay. You've got people who don't really have lawns because it's a very American idea, and when you talk to them about it, it's completely absurd. But in their yards, they each have maybe an acre or so in the villages, and they're all growing garlic and onions and potatoes and carrots, and to them it's perfectly normal. Why wouldn't you do that? I mean, there's really nothing like picking cherry tomatoes, which are growing in the back now, and cutting them up with some fresh basil and garlic that we've grown in the garden, and fresh basil here, and a little red wine vinegar that we make in the house, and good olive oil, and maybe some goat cheese, and that's really the best meal that you could think of in the summer. But the kale is still growing. We love to eat even the boys. We knew we were doing something right when they said, "Daddy, can we have more kale?" And it's fresh. You pick it. They pick it. Allowing, you know, our kids don't know the months of the year yet. They don't know the days of the week. But they know that, you know, when we've got a foot of snow on the ground, they're asking about strawberry season. When are strawberries coming? They know the strawberries come before blueberries, and then it's raspberries and blackberry season. We've got some blackberries around the side, and then the apples are coming in. And so they know the sequence of when the fruits and vegetables come in, even though they can't name the months they come in yet. So to me, that's kind of worth it right there.